Welcome back. I'm Neil Chase, author of Iron Dogs, writer-director of the action thriller Contamination. And this is the very first episode of a new series I'm calling There, I Fixed It. In this series, I'll be looking at movies that had a lot of potential, but didn't quite stick the landing, and the changes that I would suggest to strengthen the story. Now, I just want to make clear, this isn't about bashing filmmakers or tearing down anyone's performances. It's about storytelling, what worked, what didn't, and how we could rewrite a stronger version using the building blocks that were already in place. That said, today I want to talk about Nobody 2, the sequel to the surprise action hit Nobody starring Bob Odenkirk, where he plays a retired assassin called Hutch Mansell. Think John Wick with a family and more comedy. I really enjoyed the first one, and I was looking forward to seeing the sequel. Now that I have, I've got some thoughts. Spoiler warning ahead, and as always, if you like this kind of storytelling breakdown, hit that like button, subscribe, and stick around to the end for info on my one-on-one coaching if you're working on your own screenplay. So grab your popcorn. Let's get started. So let's recap the basics of Nobody 2. Hutch Mansell is back working for a shady government operative type called The Barber, taking out targets to pay off the massive debt he owes after the events of the first film. But the more time he spends on the job, the more distance grows between him and his family. So trying to reconnect, Hutch plans a family vacation to a place called Plummerville, Wisconsin, a nostalgic spot from his childhood, basically the only good memory he has as a kid. But things spiral out of control pretty quickly. See, his son Brady gets into trouble with a local bully, Hutch loses his temper defending his daughter, and suddenly the whole family is stuck in a small town showdown involving Abel, a corrupt sheriff, Wyatt, who's the town's mayor and the shady theme park owner, and a crime boss named Lindina, played by Sharon Stone. In the end, you've got gunfights, fistfights, exploding warehouses, water park warfare, and family therapy. So let's start with what Nobody 2 does well, because there are definitely things that work, some of them really well. And when something works, well, it's worth understanding why. These are all lessons we can apply to our own writing. So I'll just start with Bob Odenkirk's performance. First and foremost, Bob Odenkirk continues to bring something really unique to this action hero role: vulnerability. He doesn't swagger like a typical assassin. He gets winded, he bleeds, he breaks, but emotionally too. He really feels like a man on the edge. And from a storytelling standpoint, well, this gives the audience something rare, especially these days: a flawed, relatable protagonist. Hutch isn't just good at violence, he's trying to be a better husband and father in spite of that violence. That internal conflict makes every external conflict way more meaningful. Next, the action is stylized but remains grounded. See, the action scenes in Nobody 2 feel like a direct continuation of the first film. They're brutal, they're raw, but never really over the top in a way that breaks the world. They're grounded in their respective reality, but still heightened just enough to be satisfying. See, this is important because it honors the tone and promise of the premise set in the first film. You expect Hutch to be deadly, but it's never cartoonish, at least not until the end of the film. The violence has consequences, and that gives it weight. See, that's pretty good storytelling. Next, the emotional setup is solid. The core emotional thread, that of Hutch trying to reconnect with his family, is a really great hook. It ties directly to his motivations from the first film, and it makes sense that he would now want to repair what he nearly lost the last time around. And the idea of going back to the one place where he felt like a regular kid, well, that's both relatable and specific, which is key when you're setting up emotional stakes. It gives us a personal lens to understand Hutch's choices. That leads into the great setting with tons of potential. See, Plummerville is a quirky small town setting that contains a rundown amusement park, a water park, a carnival. It's a great backdrop for an action film. There's something inherently cinematic about placing danger in a place that's supposed to be innocent and fun. It's also metaphorical. This is the place where Hutch's innocence lives, or what's left of it. So when that place is threatened, well, it gives us a symbolic battleground. You don't just have literal explosions, you've got emotional ones too. And if the film had leaned into that symbolism more, wow, it could have added some serious depth. Next is family dynamics that show potential. See, the Mansell family isn't perfect, and that's a good thing. We see them struggling to reconnect. Hutch's wife, Becca, played by Connie Nielsen, feels distant. His son, Brady, is frustrated. And his daughter, Sammy, is still young and caught somewhere in the middle. All the pieces are here for a strong character-driven subplot about what it means to be a family under pressure. Unfortunately, a lot of that is kind of brushed aside for the sake of shootouts and explosions. But the ingredients are there, which leads us to the fact that the premise still has legs. See, the core concept of Nobody, this of an everyday man with a dark past trying to balance his violent skills with a desire for peace, that still works. It's a strong foundation, and the sequel keeps the tone and the character consistent. That's harder than it sounds. And the filmmakers deserve credit for it. All right, that covers what Nobody 2 does right. Now let's talk about where things start to go off the rails. Not from a nitpicky perspective, but from a story logic and character perspective. Because this is where the film loses momentum, tension, and ultimately, emotional payoff. First, the characters stop driving the story, and the plot takes over. The single biggest issue with Nobody 2 is that past the first act, the story is no longer driven by character choice. Instead, events happen because, well, the plot needs them to happen. And honestly, this is something I see in movies a lot these days. See, early on, the film sets up a clear and logical threat. Mayor Wyatt and Sheriff Abel tell Hutch and his family to leave town. They're not wanted. They are clearly in danger. Now, from a story standpoint, this creates a fork in the road. And the choice Hutch makes here really should define the rest of the film. But instead of choosing to leave, which is honestly the logical choice, or say choosing to stay for some genuinely compelling reason, Hutch simply stays. There's no strong emotional, moral, or practical justification. I mean, the family's not trapped. No one's being held hostage. No one knows who Hutch really is. The danger is obvious, not just to Hutch, but his whole family. And yet the exit is wide open. When characters ignore clear danger without a believable reason, well, the audience disengages. See, tension only works when we understand why someone is making a risky choice, even if it's a bad one. Which leads us to the fact that nostalgia is not strong enough motivation. The film leans heavily on Hutch's childhood memory of Plummerville as his one happy place. That's a great starting motivation. But it's not enough to sustain the entire conflict. Nostalgia works best when it's challenged, questioned, or ultimately subverted. Instead, the film treats it as a sacred truth. Hutch stays because he remembers being happy there. That's emotionally thin, especially when weighed against the safety of his entire family. A stronger approach would have forced Hutch to confront the idea that the place was never magical. He made it meaningful. That realization could have fueled real growth. Instead, nostalgia becomes an excuse for really illogical behavior. Next, we've got too many villains and not enough depth. Wyatt and Abel are actually pretty compelling antagonists. Wyatt's got a conscience. Abel does not. That contrast sets up natural tension, betrayal, and shifting alliances. Then, for some reason, Lendina is introduced, late, loudly, and without any depth. We're told she's dangerous, but we're never shown why beyond her exaggerated behavior. Now, don't get me wrong. Sharon Stone looks like she's having a lot of fun with the role, but the character's paper thin. She lacks a philosophy, a personal connection to Hutch, or really any kind of clear thematic role. From a storytelling perspective, this diffuses the conflict. Rather than deepening the existing antagonists, the film replaces them with a larger, louder threat, which actually lowers the emotional stakes instead of raising them, which leads us to escalation without consequence. As I've mentioned in previous videos, action films live and die on rising stakes. But escalation only works when choices lead to actions that have real consequences. Hutch repeatedly escalates situations. I mean, he's burning down warehouses, killing henchmen, destroying property, yet the fallout is really minimal. Even when he goes to de-escalate the situation at one point, it's kind of pointless. He threatens the bad guys and says he just wants to be left alone. But they have no idea who he is and want nothing to do with him in the first place. Had he simply left with his family, it would have ended right then and there. But then the plot needs him to pick a bigger fight. So it shoehorns a subplot about Abel kidnapping Wyatt's son and Hutch having to rescue the kid. And the thing is, neither Hutch nor his family feel like they're in any real danger. In fact, the family is never truly forced to reckon with the cost of his choices. See, without consequence, violence becomes noise. This is especially damaging given the film's stated themes of family, duty, sacrifice. Those ideas need to be tested, not just referenced. Then there's the theme park that loses its emotional weight. The amusement park should be the emotional and symbolic heart of this film. It represents Hutch's childhood, his innocence, and the story he tells himself about who he was before all the violence. But when it's finally destroyed, well, the moment lacks any kind of emotional impact. Hutch doesn't hesitate. He doesn't mourn it. He doesn't wrestle with the loss in any way whatsoever. From a storytelling standpoint, this is a real missed opportunity. If the park truly mattered, well, then destroying it should have cost him something internally. Instead, it feels like just another job. Now that we've broken down why these choices weaken the story, let's pause for a second. If you're still with me, thank you. You're clearly someone who cares about story. And if you're working on your own screenplay or planning to rewrite one, well, these kind of breakdowns are exactly what I do with writers one-on-one. So if you want to take your script from almost there to fully polished, well, then check out my coaching info in the description below. Now let's get back to the fun part. How I would fix Nobody 2 using the same setup, same cast, and the same core idea. Just with stronger story logic, emotional stakes, and character-driven choices. So let's start by giving Hutch a real reason to stay. Let's fix the central logic hole. Instead of Hutch choosing to stay in Plummerville just because of a childhood memory, let's give him a real reason. Here's one version. His son Brady is arrested after the arcade incident, and Sheriff Abel refuses to release him unless Hutch does a favor. Maybe destroy a rival stash or recover a payoff. Something where he has to use his physical skills. Now Hutch is stuck. He's trying to play by the rules to protect his kid, but he's back in the game, whether he likes it or not. Or there's a more obvious one. Hutch is told to leave. He tries to do exactly that, but Abel goes behind Wyatt's back and tries to kill the whole family. It seems like ego, but really it's a power play, especially if he intends to frame Wyatt for it. And then, later on, when Hutch tries to defuse the situation and gets caught between Abel and Wyatt's personal war and has to save Wyatt's son, well, then it can play out much like what's already in the movie. But now, it means something. And why does it work? Well, it raises stakes organically. The danger feels earned at every step. Hutch is being pulled deeper against his will, and his family is in greater and greater danger at every step, which adds to the tension and emotional urgency. Next, I would make Wyatt the main antagonist. Cut Lindina. Shift Wyatt into the main villain role. He's already established as such in the actual movie, and Lindina is this unnecessary swerve. Wyatt seems tough, he seems competent, and maybe even like a good guy at first. But when his grip on the town is threatened, well, that's when he reveals his true colors. And Abel gets to stay on as his enforcer, but not as cartoonishly inept or evil like he is in the movie. Give him some agency and some intelligence. He can be a perfect Iago to Wyatt's Othello, a traitor posing as a friend until he feels secure enough to strike. And it's Hutch that gives him the opportunity. Play them against each other and then come out on top. That adds texture. And why does it work? Well, a personal villain is always stronger than some distant caricature. And because Wyatt and Abel both have a public image to maintain, you get tension, you get mind games, and a potential for betrayal, with Hutch and his family caught right in the middle. Next, let the park matter, emotionally and strategically. Make the park more than some gimmicky backdrop. Let it mean something real to Hutch. Either create a more compelling reason for Hutch to love it beyond just simple nostalgia, like maybe he saved his brother from drowning there as kids, or give us a moment in the present where his family builds a real memory of their own before everything goes south. Then, when he's forced to destroy it to save them, well, it hurts. But it's also a way for him to shed the past and grow as a person. And the park is also misused in the film's climax. I mean, right now it's chosen as the final battleground because, well, it'll make for a fun spectacle. But there's genuinely no other reason why the final fight couldn't take place in Lindita's mansion, or in the town, or even on some random highway in the middle of nowhere. If Wyatt is our main villain, however, it all falls into place. The park is his family's legacy and the cover for his criminal empire. He needs it on multiple levels. So when Hutch brings the fight to him, well, then it means something to both of them, especially when the park is destroyed. And why does this work? Well, the destruction becomes symbolic. Hutch is letting go of the past. He realizes it was never the place that mattered. It was the people he was with. That's genuine growth. Next, give the henchmen real presence. Right now, Lindina's goons come in two flavors: faceless and utterly disposable foot soldiers, or mini bosses. They're kind of like martial arts experts with cool looks, but regardless of which of these two camps they fall into, all of them are dispatched within seconds. I mean, you've got Daniel Bernhardt playing Lindina's right-hand man, and after seeing that, I expected some kind of epic fight, but instead he dies in seconds, just like the rest of them. If that's how you treat your henchmen in a story, then honestly, why even bother? Instead, give each one a personality, a scene, a reason for being in the story beyond being some faceless threat. Let them push Hutch and his family to their limits. Henchmen are great for the supporting characters to take on in their own subplots. So make each fight unique, and then make their deaths mean something to the main villain. Honestly, Lindina acts as if she could care less, and that's a trope that needs to die. I don't care how evil you are. If you have someone working for you who is loyal, reliable, trustworthy, and you've got personal history, I mean, you feel some kind of a loss, even at the most base level, let alone if you think of them as friends. And why does this work? Well, variety keeps action fresh. Strong opponents sharpen your hero and create great dynamics, especially in terms of subplots and secondary characters. It also makes every victory feel earned. Next, give the family an arc, not just a role. Becca, Brady, Sammy, they're mostly observers in this movie. Give each of them a subplot of their own, and by extension, their own mini character arc. I mean, Becca starts off emotionally distant, but finds her strength, becomes part of the plan. Let's say that Brady feels like a disappointment, but he steps up with courage and smarts when it counts. Even Sammy can have a small, meaningful moment, something that shows that she understands what's happening despite her age, and she chooses to be brave. Right now, the closest we come to this is Becca finding a tranquilizer dart gun to use on the bad guys as a convenient plot device, and Brady choking out some faceless goon. It feels like each of these characters could have been pushed more into the fray, and in a way more significant way that actually impacted the story and other characters. They're sidelined until the bad guys go looking for them, and then they only react to the danger. Show the family members stepping up, becoming more active in their own stories, and by extension, in Hutch's. And why does this work? Well, it keeps the focus on the family, not just the violence. The climax hits harder when everyone is invested, making active choices that tie together in the end. And finally, let Hutch change. At the end of the first film, Hutch accepted who he was. He embraced his past, and he let it become part of his life once again. But now he discovers that he needs to evolve again. Except maybe this time, he realizes that he can't fix his past simply by reliving it. He has to let it go, even if that means burning it down. And why does this work? Well, every great story ends with transformation. Either the hero changes, overcoming some internal flaw, or the hero affects change on those around him so that they can overcome their flaws. If Hutch doesn't grow, well, the story is stagnant. The movie doesn't move us. Let his final choice feel like both a loss and a step forward. And that is how I'd fix Nobody 2. Same bones, stronger spine. It has all the ingredients to be a great sequel. It's got a great lead, a solid setup, strong emotional core, and a killer setting. But in the end, it kind of lost its way by prioritizing plot over character and spectacle over stakes. And look, I get it. Sequels are hard. The temptation is always to go bigger. More explosions, more villains, more chaos. But what we actually need is more clarity, more focus, and most of all, more heart. So let your characters lead the action, not the other way around. Give them reasons to fight. Give them flaws to overcome. And when in doubt, make it personal. But hey, these are just my 2 cents. What are yours? Do you agree with my take on Nobody 2? Or was there something I missed? Most importantly, what changes would you make to bring the story come to life? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let's get a conversation going. And if you're a writer, filmmaker, or storyteller working on a script of your own, and you feel like it's almost there, but not quite working yet, I'd love to help. Check out the link below to book a 1-hour coaching call with me. We'll go over your script, your outline, your idea, whatever stage you're at, in a casual, no-nonsense way, without any pressure. Let me help you like I've helped others find what's missing and how to fix it. Let's make your story as strong as it can be. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay creative.